That's confusing me. I'll try to, okay, here we go. Hi, my name is Marcia Fineland. I will be moderating this meeting. Welcome to Suds, Snacks, and Socialism, normally at the Starry Plough, but now it is Bring Your Own. We're happy today to be hosting the forum called Elections 2020, Socialist Perspectives on the Presidential Race. Our speakers will be Gloria La Riva, the presidential candidate of the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the Peace and Freedom Party of California, Ted Franklin, who is a member of System Change, Not Climate Change, and Labor Network for Sustainability, but his comments today will be his own comments, not representing the organizations, and Howie Hawkins, Green Party presidential candidate. Pretty soon you will see the agenda. We're going to start with 10-minute presentations by the candidates. We're going to follow with a Q&A and discussion by participants. And now you can see the agenda on your screen if you're able to watch. The participants, depending on how many participants choose to participate, I will be announcing what the time limit is for the participants. It'll be somewhere between, it'll probably be a minute or two, possibly 3, depending on how many people have something they want to say. They'll be interspersed with answers from the panelists when there are questions, and then the panelists will have a 5-minute wrap up. I want to ask the participants to follow these suggestions. Please mute yourself unless you're actually called upon to speak. Please do not interrupt. If you happen to not be muted, please do not interrupt any speakers. I want to let you know how you can participate. There are basically 2 ways. If you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see participants. You can click on participants and you can raise your hand that way. You can also go into the chat, and you can, if you want to actually make a comment during the forum or ask a question, please type in stack. And after that, if you want to, you can also type in your question or your comment. And if you want someone to read that for you, you'll let us know. But otherwise, you will actually get a chance to participate in the forum in person, pretty much. And also, I want to ask all of the participants, when you do get to speak, please do not make any ad hominem attacks on any of the speakers or other participants. It's fine to disagree politically and to make your point politically. I disagree that this and this and this and this, that so-and-so said. But it's not okay to say so-and-so is a liar or so-and-so always does this kind of thing. So in other words, we treat each other with respect. This is not Tuesday night, this is Saturday afternoon. I'm looking at the time here. So we still have, I'm not gonna really be able to see all of the participants if you raise your hand like this and wanting to speak. Please use the chat room or raise your hand. You'll be able to actually, you don't have to wait till the candidates are finished speaking. You'll be able to type in your chat at any time. And Stan Woods will be sending me the stack, and Larry Shoup will be timing.
Let's see if
so that will be the interruption. The candidates will get a 1-minute warning. So after 9 minutes, they have 10 minutes allotted to them. After 9 minutes, Larry will have to say 1 minute. He won't be able to just give you a signal or hold up a sign. So please be aware that that will be one interruption that happens during the meeting. So it is now 2:37. We actually have about 2 minutes. I don't know if we have
Richard Becker is listed.
Okay, great. But is Gloria listed yet?
I don't see Gloria, but Richard Becker is.
So Gloria should be coming on in a couple of minutes. If Gloria doesn't come on in a couple of minutes, we will start with Ted Franklin, who's already here. So I'm holding up my glass of water. If you've got your beer or your snacks, feel free to partake while we wait a couple of minutes for the speakers to begin.
Richard Becker's listed twice, so maybe one of those is Gloria. Oh no, it's Gloria. Gloria's there now.
Okay, that's great. Okay, we're gonna wait a minute because we said it would be 2:40. Maybe we don't need to do that. I don't know if, I guess we wouldn't take a question now. That would be too confusing. Okay, so actually, I'm going to just give a little bit of an introduction about all of the speakers, and then we'll begin with Gloria. All of the speakers, you know, normally we give a nice long introduction about all of the accomplishments of the speakers. We're not going to do that today because we want to allow the speakers to have enough time and for the participants to have enough time. But I do want to say that all of the speakers have a long history of fighting for labor rights, for environmental sustainability, and for peace, and to end imperialism, and for social justice. In fact, our participants are frequently seen not only on the ballot or in forums, but on the streets, fighting for all of us. So I'm really happy to be able to welcome all of the speakers. And now we are going to begin with Gloria La Riva, who is the presidential candidate of the Party for Socialism and Liberation and the Peace and Freedom Party of California. Gloria, you have 10 minutes and you will be given a 1-minute warning. You might be muted now. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you everybody for being on and for listening and partaking. These are very important days. A lot of things are developing from all the struggle over the issue of mail-in ballots and the post office to Trump's COVID-19 diagnosis. And we will see what happens in the following weeks. But certainly the Peace and Freedom Party campaign, in which I am the presidential candidate and Sunil Freeman, the vice presidential candidate, and our campaign across the country in the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and in Vermont, the Liberty Union Party is going really quite strong. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now, and I've been on active tour since August 20th. And we will finish up in San Francisco on November 3rd, right? I plan to vote in person. But I want to say a little bit about myself because I think that my life experience is that of, you know, tens of millions, if not the majority of the people in the United States, especially as the working class has developed with immigration and so on, and the growing poverty that is waking people up to the need for socialism. I was born and raised here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and my father was a letter carrier, my mother an immigrant, a garment worker, and other jobs too that were typical of Mexican immigrants. She was from Mexico. And I grew up knowing poverty, racism for sure, and insecurity, 2 foreclosures of our home and 1 eviction. So, you know, it was always a mystery to me, why do we have to lose our home? Why do we have to pick up stakes and go somewhere else all over this city? And I became an activist going to college at Brandeis University in Massachusetts. I had no idea how I would pay for college, but a young woman came to my school and said, apply at Brandeis, there was money. I went there and found out that the Black and the Latino students 4 years before me in that great year of student strikes across the country in 1968 had fought and won a significant affirmative action program. That's how I got into college. I'm a strong believer in affirmative action, including with quotas and adherence by corporations, education, on the job and the workplace. So my campaign is aligned with many of the real working class struggles taking place today. Myself and our supporters, members have marched in solidarity with the Black Lives Movement from Minneapolis to Rochester, to Burlington, Vermont, to Portland, Oregon, to the Bay Area. I was there with moms and the veterans and their lawn blowers in Portland, Oregon, to see thousands of people every night in peaceful protest, militant but peaceful. And to see the other day Chris Wallace on the presidential debate describing it as 100 days of violence is truly an outrage. And it shows you how being on television with those two imperialists would have been a completely different debate. And of course, that's why we're not allowed on, because we challenge the system. And they know that millions of people, we would have their ear. But together with my comrades, we traveled for a total of 10 days to Louisiana. First, after filing in Tennessee, we went to Lake Charles, Louisiana, and brought a great deal of food and water to the stranded residents in Lake Charles, whose city is completely destroyed. No water, sewage, or electricity, maybe for months to come, if ever. And then we returned again for another week to help build a demonstration. We decided that what they needed was not only aid from volunteers, of which there were many thousands. What they needed was a political struggle. We organized a demonstration that brought them a lot of media coverage in New Orleans, because that's where probably 15,000 Lake Charles people are there in hotels. And of course, it's not enough. They need to be rebuilt, their homes. And this struggle is going to be more and more of a phenomenon with these environmental destruction, the crisis of global warming, from the derecho storm that was a virtual hurricane in Iowa to these raging fires in California. And actually, even though I've lived in San Francisco for 39 years, I haven't been there during this stage of fires. And I want to express my solidarity with everyone who's having to breathe that air, the people who've had to escape, the people who've lost their lives. It is truly a catastrophe. We're on the ballot in 15 states, a real achievement in light of the pandemic, because we intended for 14 before the pandemic. Our people in New Mexico gathered 4,500 signatures in 11 days. It's a young crew that worked night and day to get on the ballot. And then we had to shut down completely across the country for 3 months. But we picked it back up in late June, and we qualified in Arkansas. Of course, the California Convention nominated me. Colorado, District of Columbia, which involved a lawsuit, a successful one. Florida, Illinois, Louisiana, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Utah, Vermont, and Washington State. I'm also a write-in in Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Missouri, New York, Ohio, Texas, West Virginia, and more are to come. I'm the candidate, of course, as I said, of PFP.CA.Official and of Peace and Freedom, and I'm very, very proud to be representing Peace and Freedom in California. We're facing what couldn't have been imagined, the extent of the crisis people are facing this year in the United States, but also worldwide. And the despicable role of this government, not only Trump, but the Democrats and Republicans together, the Pentagon, the whole system of the United States, which is, has failed to have a national plan. In fact, Trump has actively acted against the people being saved. And we see as a result, almost 210,000 people. Maybe it might be up to 250,000 by the time election time comes around. And the Democrats have hardly put up a fight, if anything. And they tried to revive the Russiagate, Russia bashing again, accusing China. It's part of what could very well end up being, regardless of who wins, an increased aggression against China and Russia in this great power competition and military buildup. And we see now that not only has the US failed to do anything substantially for the people, but is now blockading Cuba, trying to force countries around the world from accepting Cuban doctors who've gone in a noble effort to save lives, and it's why they should win the Nobel Prize for Peace as the heroes that they are. And the US has intensified its aggression against Venezuela, keeping the medicine and the food from coming in, blocking oil shipments from Venezuela to Cuba, and again, trying to demonize the doctors as a way to try to overthrow the Cuban and the revolutionary struggle. But the Cuban Revolution and the revolutionary struggle in Venezuela, this is a very dangerous time, and we have to be alert for that. The tightening of the sanctions against Iran, against North Korea. In other words, the US aggression around the world has not ceased up. The aggression against the Palestinian people, the continued financing of Israel, and I say, not only we, as president, would we, it's not enough to just say, return the embassy of the United States back to Tel Aviv, but shut it down entirely and cut off all US aid to apartheid Israel. We have a 10-point program.
Gloria, one minute left. Gloria, 1 minute left.
Yes, so we stand for the shutting down of all foreign bases, including take away all those troops from South Korea and help the reunification, the true reunification of Korea as a whole. And we have a 10-point program that I think is really excellent, calling for reparations for Black and Indigenous people, for housing to be a right for all, because we have an excess of housing under capitalism. The workers make everything in this country. The workers should own all of it and control in a sustainable, economical, and ecological way to help save the planet. We call for the freedom of Native American political prisoner Leonard Peltier, Mumia Abu-Jamal, Mutula Shakur, and all political prisoners to really drastically reduce the prison population, but also to fight for reforms, those that the prisoners themselves demand. Cancel all rents and mortgages for tenants, homeowners, small landlords, and small business.
That's 10 minutes.
I am done.
You have 5 more minutes at the end to
Thank
come
you.
up to say something more.
Thank you, timer, Larry.
You're welcome. Good to see you, Gloria.
I love you.
Okay, I'm back. Hi, well, welcome back. Welcome to everyone. I'm happy to be back. I'm Marcia, I'm your moderator. Our next speaker is Ted Franklin, and he's going to be speaking about voting for Biden. Ted, you're muted. Unmute yourself.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you very much, Marcia, for inviting me to speak to this group, along with presidential candidates Howie Hawkins and Gloria La Riva. I am not running for president, so I won't talk about myself or my own history very much, but I'm a climate and labor activist, a retired union attorney, and a journalist. Howie and Gloria are both well known for their lifelong commitment to the cause of socialism and liberation, and they are running on platforms that present inspiring visions of where we need to go. And I didn't hear anything that Gloria said with which I do disagree. But as someone who has frequently voted for third-party candidates, I do not support these campaigns. This country has been careening toward a constitutional crisis, which will be fought out primarily over the question of who will occupy the White House in 2021, Biden or Trump. For the first time in American history, an incumbent president has declared war on the electoral process. He threatens to disregard any outcome that does not declare him the winner. Masha Gessen, the author of Surviving Autocracy, says that rule number 1 in dealing with an aspiring autocrat is believe the autocrat. Believe his threats. Left unchecked, he will do what he says he will do. And what we do now matters. Do we act as part of a bloc that defends small d democracy? Or do we proclaim that the crisis before us is just another intramural squabble between competing groups of bourgeois politicians? Do we join in, or do we scoff at our friends who are making calls, addressing envelopes, or attempting to rally their organizations to urge voters across the country to vote for Biden? We can all recite the old saw that there is only one party in the United States, the party of capital with two right wings. And yes, the Democratic Party is complicit in the process that gave us Trump in the first place. And we all can count 125 plus reasons never to vote for the neoliberal Joe Biden. We all know that installing Biden in the White House and electing a Democratic majority to the Senate will not usher in a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, racial justice, or a reallocation of the military budget to socially useful purposes. But this is not just another quadrennial opportunity to choose which bourgeois politician will mislead us. The choice is between a president who aims to crush the left and one who hopes to co-opt us. The question for the left is not whether Joe Biden is the lesser of two evils, but whether a Biden or Trump administration will create more favorable terrain for the left to organize. Despite the mobilization of millions in Black Lives Matter demonstrations a few months ago, the left has no chance to make a revolution this year, but the right does. A neo-fascist bloc with expansive ambitions has captured a major political party and dominates the White House, state legislatures, the United States Senate, and the courts. This bloc aims to install and consolidate a permanent right-wing grip on state power this fall, whether Trump wins this election or not. So if Trump loses this election with less than a crushing defeat, he has many, many legal pathways to remain in power. Some of these have been gamed out in articles that have been published in, say, the Atlantic Monthly. I'll provide a link that will get you to those articles in the chat later on. As long as Trump holds office, he has many levers to pull, up to and including the declaration of martial law to put an end to civil unrest, real or imaginary. There already is civil unrest on Fox News. And for Trump, illegality presents no obstacle, no red line. He is a cornered beast. He knows that a cold prison cell may await him in New York State if he fails to extend his stay in office or alternatively flee the country. If we still have a functioning bourgeois democracy in 2021, it will not be because Donald Trump has willingly left office, but because Trumpism has failed to assemble a sufficiently powerful coalition of right-wing forces, elite and popular, to pull off an authoritarian coup. The consequences of Trump's remaining in the White House will be harsh for the left. We may find humor in Trump's attempts to paint Joe Biden as a socialist, but make no mistake about it. Trump is serious about crushing the socialist left if he retains power. Democrats shook their heads when Trump boasted in his convention speech 4 years ago, "I alone can fix it." Yet Trump has already done a prodigious amount of fixing on taxes, climate, judicial appointments. He has eviscerated regulatory agencies. Although his cruelties, collusions, corruptions, and crimes are legion, he has delivered the goods for his most powerful backers. If Trump holds on to the White House, he'll do more of the same and worse. Still, the point is not just the magnitude of his evil. That's a two-dimensional political assessment. It's about pushing things back and forth on the left-right track. But we on the left are engaged in a multi-dimensional Gramscian war of position. Our task is to build strategic alliances among working class forces that can ultimately wield hegemonic political power. To get to that space, we need the freedom to organize. Trump's continuation in power would deny us that freedom. Every movement for social justice, whether focused on climate, race, workers' rights, indigenous sovereignty, reproductive rights, policing, or international solidarity, will be attacked and pushed into a defensive posture, if not silenced, jailed, or forced underground. As Noam Chomsky warns, for those of us who see climate change as an existential threat, another 4 years of Trump may literally lead us to the stage where the survival of organized human society is deeply imperiled. As radical strategist Max Elbaum explains, the central polarization in the country today is between a Trumpist bloc driving toward authoritarian rule versus a majority opposition that, for all its vacillations and differences within it, is defending the democratic space that movements for justice, peace, and radical change require to advance. In the real world of politics, the first step to ousting Trump and removing white nationalism from political power is to ensure the largest possible turnout for Biden. If we contribute to that turnout, we align ourselves with the labor, racial justice, climate justice, gender justice, immigrant rights, LGBTQ, tenant rights, and public health activists who are going all out to beat Trump. Even then, it will take a lot more than voting to oust Trump. We need to prepare for a protracted battle that will include strikes, boycotts, mass demonstrations, occupations, and many creative forms of civil disobedience to remove Trump from office and begin our struggle with the neoliberal Biden administration. Mounting campaigns for third-party candidates with small support alternates and isolates us from essential allies. It certainly will not persuade them of our brilliant revolutionary tactical acumen. The overwhelming majority of voters think Biden versus Trump matters more than past presidential choices. And they are right. I'd much rather see Howie or Gloria or Bernie sitting behind the Resolute desk next year, but that's not going to happen. For us on the left, it is not about picking our next leader. It's about choosing who will be fighting next year. Thank you.
Okay. All right, you finished with 1 minute, a little over 1 minute left. Thanks, Ted.
Oh, I reserve my time then.
Okay, so we're a little early and I don't see that Howie Hawkins has joined us. Is that not the case? I'm looking at the participants.
Oh, I can't see that he has either.
Okay, so Howie was notified that he would be speaking at 3:10 and it is now almost 3 o'clock. So I'd like to invite participants who have, say, a 2 minute, something 2 minutes that they'd like to say or ask, and just say, we'll just save up the questions for answers later unless they're really short. Is there anyone of the participants who would like to share or ask a question, or I say share ideas because I used to be an elementary school teacher. Now, please either raise your hand or get in the chat.
We have CT and Michael K.
I see. Okay, CT, I'll do, and I see Bill Balderston also. So I'll start with CT Weber. CT, you have 2 minutes, and Larry, give him a 30-second warning, okay?
Okay.
Okay, CT, you can unmute yourself and you can speak.
Yes, good morning or afternoon. For Ted and others, I live in California, and to me, people in the United States don't elect the president. The electors elect the president. No matter what we do, even if 2 million people in California vote for Gloria or for Howie or anybody else, Biden is going to carry the all 55 electoral votes in California. And the problem with the strategy that Ted is recommending is that it's been the same strategy for year after year after year after year. And so what happens is that each time the country moves a little bit further to the right. The Democrats don't do anything between elections. When Democrats win, and they're to the right of center. And then the Republicans win and they move even further to the right. And so nothing's done between elections. If the left is really serious and the unions are really serious about bringing this to an end, they would do something like qualify some ballot initiatives like proportional representation so that all the parties can be represented in the legislative body in direct percentage to the number of votes that they get. Then you start opening the system up. But as long as we got
30-second warning.
Okay, as long as you have a rigged system the way we do now, we're never going to be able to do that. And I don't see anybody who's advocating that we support Biden, take the lead in making sure that we have qualified for the ballot in states like California and other states, proportional representation, equal public funding in campaigns, making ballot access universal in all states. Things
2
like
minutes is up.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call on Mike L. followed by Bill Baldrick. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Marcia. I'd like to agree with CT that working for proportional representation would be a good use of our times. But I disagree with his characterization that in California, it doesn't matter because California is going to vote for Biden and the Electoral College will be set for Biden. I think voting is just, a 1-minute operation, but organizing for voting is day after day after day. And I would agree with Ted that organizing and joining with others who are organizing to defeat Trump is an important operation, independently of how an individual votes in California or elsewhere. My question is for both Gloria and for Ted, since Howie is not here, is what do you think about the split in the left in Germany in the early 30s that allowed Hitler to take power and galvanize his forces? If the Communist Party and the Social Democratic Party had been united in Germany early 1930s, there would be a different history for the whole world. Please comment if you care to. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to save that question for later because I think it's fair for all the candidates to have that same question. And I will call on, I said Bill is next and then Jean Rule.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Great. Well, I appreciate both perspectives. Let me begin. And my first comment / question for Ted is you portray the right as a kind of unified bloc. And I'm not sure that that is quite the case. Certainly much of the Republican Party, as with rats fleeing a sinking ship, are looking for some alternative, including many signing on to the Biden campaign. I'm not minimizing the bloc that does exist, especially in terms of the kind of paramilitary right, but I'm not sure your portrayal is quite accurate. It doesn't mean your arguments are invalid, but I think that's a question. And the other thing, just quickly, is I agree with what Michael said about it's not a matter of an individual vote. I agree. However one votes, that's your business. But the question is, what will put us in a stronger position now coming out of this election? There's obviously going to be massive demonstrations regardless of the results. And isn't it better to establish a poll on the left preceding that, albeit that it may not seem to have great numbers at this moment, that will allow us to be in a much stronger position rather than sort of having given a kind of
30 seconds.
half-hearted support to the Biden / dump Trump campaign. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Jean Rule. I missed Richard Becker, so we'll do Jean and then Richard Becker.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to thank the participants in this. This is really a good program, much better than the other presidential campaign debate. So I really appreciate the viewpoints of all the people. Let's just say, when I came back to California in the late 70s, I was recruited by CT to run as a congressional candidate. I've done so several times in over the past period, except when I left Peace and Freedom to work for Jesse Jackson in '88. That was a very good experience for me. And then also for the Bernie campaign more recently. And you know, I think the reason I left, I endorsed Bernie is that, you know, he's won more votes, not only than any other socialist candidate in history, but more than all of the other socialist candidates for president in US history, 13 million people. And in 2006, he was one person. We did very well. In 2018, there were at least four people who ran as Bernie people, known as the Squad. And now I think in 2020, there's going to be even more. So what they're doing is really building a movement that is, I know people
30
say,
seconds.
People say, oh, they're just Democrats. Well, I think there are a different kind of Democrat. And what I plan to do is obviously vote for Gloria. She's the only socialist and the only person that supports the socialist countries around the world. But also, I think it's important that we raise this issue of ending China bashing and things like that. And I plan to support those people in the swing states who are going to vote for.
Time's up.
Because I can't vote and throw up at the same time, so I can't vote for the mainstream candidates. Thank you.
Thanks, Gene. So I called on Richard Becker next, and we'll see if Howie's ready after that. I know there are more people on the stack, and they will be the first ones for the discussion following the next candidate, depending. Okay, go ahead, Richard.
Do you want me to wait until after? I can.
No, I want you to speak now.
Okay, so I'm in an office mask on. I just wanted to say this is like, given the thoroughly reactionary character of the U.S. Constitution, and I think some of us have learned more about how, you know, the fact that there could be a vote of 29 people can vote, 50 people can vote on who will be the president, one vote for each state House of Representatives delegation, or the Supreme Court can decide by 5-4 or 6-3 or whatever. Given this and the fact that the Constitution is ancient from the rise of capitalism and has no provisions in it for social or economic rights, why should we fear a constitutional crisis? I mean, doesn't there have to be a constitutional crisis for a revolution to happen or even for real change to happen? I think so. And I don't think that, you know, just going along with the, you know, what we've lived with and what we've experienced for so long is really acceptable or defensible. We need something radically different. And that's not going to happen with Joe Biden being elected.
30 seconds.
That's it.
Okay.
Can I just say, so my question is, should we fear a constitutional crisis? Maybe the speakers can speak to that.
Okay, so I don't see Howie yet. So I'm gonna ask the speakers to have, I'll say 3 minutes each, because there's like 3 different questions. One about Germany, one about unifying the Republicans, and one about the constitutional crisis. And I will start with Ted. Is Ted there?
Mute. So I'll start with that question about whether we should fear a constitutional crisis. If you think we're ready to make the revolution this year or next year, if you think that the balance of forces is such that, you know, we would not be wiped out militarily if we get into a street battle with guns ablazing, if you're not afraid of a renewal of the McCarthy era, or if you're not afraid of COINTELPRO on steroids with Facebook determining using heuristic methods who is connected to whom and who all needs to be rounded up in the new Palmer raids. If you think none of that is a real danger, in a constitutional crisis right now, perhaps you would come to the conclusion that this is the time for the constitutional crisis, and that this is an opportunity for the left, and that what will the outcome of Trump taking power will be to radicalize the masses, and bring about the final conflict. I don't see it that way. I mean, I think right now my evaluation is that the left is relatively isolated, relatively weak. The candidate, you know, for the Green Party candidate in California in 2016 got 1.8% of the vote. And I don't see that that's going to actually improve this year. I mean, I'd love to, you know, if I actually thought we could get something like 50% of the vote, I'd probably be making a different kind of pitch right now. I'd say, hey, we can hit 50 in California with the number of people that we have supporting it, and let the rest of the world, you know, take care of about getting Biden in office and getting Trump out. But I don't see us that we're there. My 3 minutes are probably almost all spent on that. But
we have a minute left.
Okay, let me address the question of is the right a unified bloc? I by no means said that the right was a unified bloc. In fact, I said that the only reason we will not have an authoritarian push in the coming year is because he cannot consolidate a right-wing bloc. Trump cannot consolidate a right-wing bloc to pull that off. And a right-wing bloc requires things at many different levels, both elite and popular. He has a very substantial popular base, enough for the job, but he does not have a lot of elite support. There's many elites who are drifting away, and there are elites, of course, who back the Democrat. So, you know, there isn't a unified ruling class in support of Trumpism. I hope that in seeing that bloc is forming, you're of course going, when a party veers to the right, there's going to be some people jumping off. But how many of the senators have jumped off?
Time's up.
Yeah, I know I had to unmute myself. Thank you, Ted. And now we're going to give Gloria 3 minutes to answer those questions.
Well, I just have to respond to what Ted just said. It's a very fearful, apocalyptic kind of image that you're portraying if Trump wins, Ted. With all respect to what you're saying, we know how horrible his policies have been. It's unimaginable what, at the beginning of his term, what he would have done to the EPA and so much to mention. But you're speaking as if our fate depends entirely on what the president does or intends to do, and leave out the role of the people. I know I hesitate to say masses, because sometimes the masses seems like a leftist term, but the people have been showing their power and are feeling their power, and it's a nascent movement, but it's not a movement that's going to get pushed back into the corner. The repression in Washington when Trump tried to bring out his little Bible Act, or what took place in Portland when the federal troops came in trying to drag people off the street, and the thousands who night after night kept marching and showing up, and everywhere else that people are fighting for justice. It is a new movement. And it's a movement rooted in the Black struggle, but also white youth who are not accepting anymore the old incremental changes that we have to accept year by year. And I tell you, I'm old enough, of course, as most of us are here, to know that debate about this time it's important, this time it's critical that we support Mondale over Reagan or whoever else. And it's always been this crisis if we don't. And, you know, Dick took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say the real constitutional crisis is the fact that there is no guarantee for people. And we've concentrated our campaign in primarily the Black and Latino and poor white neighborhoods where people, you know, they just don't care about the election. They're fed up, they're hurting, suffering, asking, what can you do? And we say, well, what can we do together? I think the thing about Germany, I'm it seems like you're inferring, the comrade who asked that, as if, isn't the failure to join together and not take an ultra-leftist position as the communists did, isn't that going to lead us to this danger of failing to unite? Well, of course we should all unite, and I think we do. I think we do, but if everyone on the left united,
30 seconds.
it would be this big. And what we need to do is for the people to rise up with, you know, political orientation and guidance. And I think people are learning that, as I said, because capitalism is an utter failure. That's why young people are joining, and that's what they say. It's a failure, and they're finding their way to socialism.
Okay, time's up.
Let's see. Okay, thank you, Gloria. So do we have Howie Hawkins with us yet?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, I'm hoping someone can make a phone call to get Howie Hawkins, because I see one question that is actually for Gloria and Howie, and I'd like to have Howie here to answer the question.
What about Michael Rubin?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So
or Gloria and I can respond to each other for a bit. And
well, no. We can. I'm going to go on back to the participants, and we're going to, and then we'll just bring on Howie when he's here. And otherwise, it's a good discussion anyway. So is Jean Dillard on the stack?
Yes.
Okay. So
she's sitting next to me.
Next, I think Aaron had a question actually for Howie and Gloria, but I'm going to ask him to tell us whether he wants to wait when Howie comes on. Go ahead, Jean.
I am interested. Ted Franklin said that he would put some articles from Atlantic Monthly in the chat, and I am interested in that.
Okay, so thanks, Jean. And then Aaron, Aaron is going to wait until Howie comes on. So Dave Campbell is next, followed by Novia.
Thank you. So yeah, Gloria said a lot of what I was thinking already, because my first election was 1984, which was the most important election in our lifetime, because Ronald Reagan being reelected would be the solidify fascism, make the Supreme Court right-wing for a generation, destroy the left for a generation, etc. Every single thing, every single argument, word for word, being used to scare people into voting for Trump, or for Biden, because we have to beat Trump, was the same exact argument I was given to read to everybody when I was precinct walking for Mondale in '84. Mondale, who's that? Yeah. So we're back exactly where we were then.
30 seconds.
Same arguments. And they didn't work then, and they don't work now.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. So next is Novia, followed by Douglas Henry. Is Novia here?
No, but Howie Hawkins is.
Oh, okay. So Douglas, why don't we have you, Howie, are you ready to start? Why don't we have Douglas make his presentation, and then for 2 minutes, and then we'll bring on Howie Hawkins for 10. Go ahead, Douglas.
Yeah, what was that? What am I supposed to be doing? I'm sorry, I didn't.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I didn't ask a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, so you want to ask the question later?
I didn't ask a question.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you did not want to be called on.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next speaker is going to be Howie Hawkins. Howie Hawkins is the nominee of the Green Party, of the USA Green Party for President of the United States. Go ahead, Howie. You have 10 minutes and you will be given a 1-minute warning.
Can you ask Howie if you can start a video?
Okay, so Howie, you have to go to the bottom of your screen where it says stop video or start video, and start your video, and also unmute yourself if you're muted.
Yep, okay. I'm just getting oriented here. So you want 10 minutes on why people should vote green in California?
Well, actually, there are people from all over the place, but I think you should give 10 minutes on why they should vote green or why they should vote for you.
Okay. Well, we're running for real solutions to life or death issues. We got a climate meltdown, and we were the first people. I was the first candidate to campaign for a Green New Deal back in 2010. It became the signature issue of the Green Party in the 2010s, that decade. And the Democrats at the end of 2018, after the midterms, took the slogan, diluted the content, and now they buried it. You know, the non-binding resolution for a Green New Deal dropped the ban on fracking and new fossil fuel infrastructure, which is the essential immediate demand for the climate movement. They dropped the phase out of nuclear power, and now the Democratic Party is pro-nuclear for the first time in 50 years. They dropped the deep cuts in military spending in order to help fund this Green New Deal, and they extended the deadline from 2030 to 2050. And that non-binding resolution for a Green New Deal, which I just described, Pelosi's never let them vote on it. And McConnell said, we want y'all to vote on it because half you senators on the Democratic side running for president. So Schumer and Markey said that was a trick, and they all voted present, except 4 of those Democrats voted no with the Republicans. So if people first learned that Joe Biden's not for a Green New Deal at that debate Tuesday, which he made clear, they haven't been paying attention. So our Green New Deal, we have a detailed budget. It's the only real plan out there. AOC handed off the planning to the New Consensus think tank, and they haven't produced a damn thing. I mean, all these people lining up behind the Democrats who are pro-fossil fuel, pro-nuclear, they talk about the one thing that was specific come out of that joint Sanders-Biden Unity Task Force on Climate was they're gonna retrofit 5 million buildings in 4 years. Well, there are 120 million buildings in the country. It's gonna take 150 years to do that. I mean, this is a joke, they're not serious. So our plan will tell you how we're gonna get to 0 greenhouse gas emissions and 100% clean energy in 10 years. It's a $27.5 trillion program over those 10 years, creates 38 million jobs. You can check our homework. It's on the website, howiehawkins.us. So that's one life or death issue. And then we're in a situation where after 45 years of wage stagnation and housing, healthcare, and college costs for the kids going through the roof, life expectancies for working class people are in decline. Some are having to choose between healthcare and paying the rent or utilities. Some are depressed at their prospect. They call them deaths of despair, suicides, alcoholism, drug addictions. And that's inexcusable in a rich country. So it's always been part of our Green New Deal. We're calling for an economic bill of rights, the right to a job, to an income above poverty, to Medicare for all. And we want a national health service that's community controlled, not just socialize the payment, single payer, but socialize the delivery and make the hospitals, clinics publicly owned, the doctors and nurses and the other healthcare workers, public employees, and then have locally elected boards to govern the system locally and federated state and national level for overall coordination and planning. We want to expand public housing so that everybody has an affordable housing option. We're talking about 25 million units over 10 years. I don't have time to say why we got that number, but that's the number we need. And we got a Green New Deal housing program from Sanders and AOC that's 2.5 million units. I mean, why even put the program forward if it doesn't solve the problem of affordable housing for low-income people? We're talking about tuition-free public education from pre-K and childcare through post-secondary college, trade schools, continuing adult education. And finally, we want to double Social Security benefits so that no seniors living in poverty. So that's the Economic Bill of Rights. And then finally, third life or death issue is this new nuclear arms race. The United States kicked this off under Obama, continued under Trump. They're deploying new strategic nukes that are 6 times faster than the old ones. It's not launch on warning anymore, it's launch on anticipation. and they're deploying tactical nukes into conventional forces with the crackpot idea that you can use them to throw back a conventional force and then de-escalate. They call it escalate to de-escalate. The Russians got the same doctrine. It's crazy. So the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist has the doomsday clock they've had since the 40s, the closest it's ever been to midnight. Nobody's talking about this because both parties are for this nuclear modernization program. So we're calling for peace initiatives. 75% cut in military spending, withdrawal from these endless wars and 800 foreign military bases, pledge no first use of nuclear weapons, disarm to a minimum credible deterrent, and then go to the other nuclear powers and say, we're no longer a threat, tensions are reduced, let's negotiate complete nuclear disarmament because these weapons should never be used or we're all going to die. And go there with world public opinion. 3 years ago, 122 nations agreed to the text of a new treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. The International Campaign for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons got the Nobel Peace Prize for that. And hardly anybody in this country knows about that because the major parties won't talk about it and the corporate state media won't talk about anything that the two corporate parties won't talk about. So that should be a top campaign issue. And that's something else we've been trying to inject in there. Okay. So how much time have we got left?
You got 4 minutes.
4 minutes. So of course, the COVID pandemic, you know, Trump, chickens have come home to roost, man. He, you know, was disregarding the public health guidelines, but didn't care that we got 4% of the world's population and 25% of the COVID deaths and infections. But now everybody around him got it. He's been running around like Typhoid Mary, making people sick, and finally made himself sick. So we need, you know, a federal program, test, contact trace, quarantine those infected or exposed. And then we need a COVID relief package that really takes care of people's needs for housing and income and jobs, postal service, state and local governments, all this stuff that, you know, this failed state that blew the COVID crisis and now the COVID depression can't seem to deliver. And then we've had the centuries-old pandemic of racism exposed for everybody to see because George Floyd was murdered by the police in Minneapolis right on everybody's TV screens. So a hopeful thing is so many people came out, not just people of color, but white people too, in solidarity to try to do something about that issue. We're calling for community control of the police because if the police police themselves, they're going to keep getting away with these crimes. We're calling for an end to the war on drugs, legalize marijuana, decriminalize the hard drugs like they did in Portugal, and treat it as a health problem, not a criminal problem. And then defund the police is fine, redirecting those resources is fine, but there ain't enough money in the police departments to provide the housing, the healthcare, the jobs, the schools in racially oppressed communities that have been segregated, discriminated against, and exploited for generations. That requires a federal program, multi-trillion-dollar, multi-year program to rebuild these communities. So at this point, not sure how much time I got left, but you know, my argument is
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. Our campaign is a second front against Trump. And I'm really sick and tired of these so-called progressives who maybe in 2004 were saying safe states, you know, vote green in safe states and vote Kerry, who was pro-war anyway, in the battleground states. Now they're saying, don't vote for the Greens, vote for Biden everywhere. They're pushing the whole thing to the right. And independents, the progressives, socialists got to stand up and say, no, the best way to fight the right is with our own organization power, use our vote in the election. If we vote for Biden and we're for Medicare for all and the Green New Deal and these other things, we get lost in the sauce. They don't know we're for that. We voted for Biden and Biden will take us for granted. So I'm urging people, particularly, I know I'm talking to some Californians. I think how much is Biden ahead there? It's probably about 30 points. It's 31 in my state. I think it's 29 in California. Any self-respecting progressive that votes for Biden in California they should turn in their progressive card because they're supporting a neoliberal hawk when they got an option and Trump's he's gonna get creamed in California anyway. And that's true in most of the states. But we say every state is a battle.
1 minute.
Every state is a battleground for the Green Party. You go into some of these battleground states like Pennsylvania and Ohio, it's only the Green Party that's fighting fracking in those pipelines. The Democrats duck and the retrograde Republicans are obviously for it. And as a friend of mine in Mississippi, colleague Kuno said, they want us to make these states sacrifice zones. and we're not going to abandon them. The best way to fight the right is with our own organization and power, not rely on the Democrats who have accommodated them. You know, Clinton, it was triangulation. Biden talks about how he's going to go across the aisle. We're not going to get the things we want unless we start voting for what we want. So I urge a vote for the Green Party. Me and Angela Walker, my running mate, I got time to introduce her. She's a longtime racial justice union activist, and she's a truck driver right now down there in South Carolina. She ran for sheriff against the crazy David Clark, the Democrat whose slogan was, "Don't call 911, get a gun." She got 20% of the vote, 67,000 votes in Wisconsin.
Time's up. You have 5 minutes at the end to sum up. 5 more minutes at the end of our thing. Thank you, Howard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Moderator has to come back. Okay, thank you very much, Howie Hawkins. So we have had a question from Aaron Riveles. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Aaron's going to ask his question now. So we have, this is time for participation. You have I said 2 or 3 minutes. It's looking like I don't see a lot of, hands up. So, or I don't have, okay. Oh, let me review how you participate. You can either use the hand raising feature, which is if you go to participants at the bottom, you'll see a way to raise your hand, or you can go to the chat and please type in stack and you will get on the stack. I will be notified that you are on the stack. I'm going to call on Aaron next, and then I'm going to call on Roger Harris. But I'm going to give you 3 minutes now because we have quite a bit of time. I may have to switch back to 1 or 2 later. And you'll get a 30-second warning. Go ahead, Aaron.
Presidential campaign?
What?
Never mind, you didn't.
Please mute yourself if you're not on the speakers list.
Oh, hi, hello. My name is Aaron Riveles. Thank you for hosting this. So my question was for both Howie and Gloria La Riva. I recently saw how they're both kind of endorsed by several different smaller socialist parties. And I was wondering if either of them would be, if they saw there was an opportunity in the future after this presidential election and working together. And I know Gloria La Riva, she mentioned that even though, you know, she said like, even if the left united, we would be this small still, if they saw any potential progress that could be made from working together in the future.
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm going to call on Roger, and then I'm going to ask the candidates to the 2 candidates that were asked that question to answer. Maybe we'll just do that briefly, and then I'll continue with the stack. Okay, so go ahead, Roger.
Okay, thank you, Marsha, and thank you, everybody, in particular the candidates. This question is for both candidates. And so when I speak with friends who are Democrats and I say, why should I vote for Biden? And I'll get a long answer. And then I say, okay, and now tell me why I should vote for Biden without using the word Trump. And then I get no answer because there isn't any answer they have other than he's not Trump. Now, I think probably some more blue dog type Democrats would find some value in Biden, but most of the people I know don't see any value in Biden. And I unfortunately don't have many social contacts with the Republicans. But my sense is that in this election, more so than most elections, both candidates are very unattractive. And a lot of the people who are voting for them are voting against the other candidate rather than for the candidate. What does that mean for us on the left is my question, particularly when I look at and read the pundits. They're saying that most likely third parties will do poorer this year than they did in previous years. And while that is, and I'd like to get your analysis of what the expectation is. I know what we'd like to see, but what your expectation is in terms of the vote, in terms of third party, left third parties, and why would there be an indication of now when we have the two most manifestly unattractive candidates that we don't have a real stampede toward left third parties? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question. So now we have two questions for the two candidates. So I'm gonna give them each, I guess we'll do the 3 minutes for answers to the two questions. And so I'm going to go to Gloria first and then Howie.
Answering the questions of both Aaron and Roger.
Right.
And how much time is that?
3 minutes.
Okay, well, to Aaron's question, thank you so much, Aaron. Right now, the PSL is working, and Peace and Freedom are working with other leftists, and it includes not only coalition in struggle for Palestine or against wars. We've done that always consistently over the years, and overcoming or overlooking different differences to focus on the importance of the unity on issues of war, especially, or racism. But indeed, I think that it's not just in the future, but now. You know, the Peace and Freedom Party has endorsed Greens in the past. We have, I think, this year as well. And in the DSA, which grew fantastically fast after 2016, there's a lot of development, changes, discussion, debate, and many people in the DSA approach us, work with us in varying degrees across the country. That's just one example. So I really think that, again, the challenge is for all of us to reach to the people who are not mobilized yet, but who are understanding something has to change. And the key to that is skillful organizing, is going into the streets and not depending just on memes or social media, but engaging with people. I think that our experience in New Orleans was one of the richest things. Some of our young members came from Missouri, Florida, and Tennessee to help out in New Orleans for the organizing we were doing during the hurricane aftermath. And when we were in the streets with the black and white, very poor people who'd worked all their lives, all kinds of jobs in construction and elsewhere, and lost everything, and were carrying a banner that they painted, which we helped guide, that said, "We lost everything, Trump. We need help." And the speeches that these people gave, who'd never been in a march before, but who have the instinct of understanding this is unjust and something has to give. And they were very, very supportive of the fact that we were socialists. We're talking about Lake Charles people. Our comrades from Florida said, you know, we're studying the book of Hammer and Hoe about the Communist Party in the South in the 30s. And they said, this is real. And they said, you know, it was a rich, rich experience. It's those kinds of engagements and confidence in the workers that we must always rely on. As far as voting, there's 35 million people of adult age who cannot vote. We have to remember that the vote is not everything, but the people who are most conscious and cannot, be immigrant or ex-prisoners or prisoner.
Okay.
3 minutes up.
Okay, so we have Howie answering those two questions. And then I think we're gonna go back to 2 minutes because we have 20 minutes left until we start the wrap up. So let's go to Howie answering those two questions. Do you need them?
Well, yeah, left solidarity is one of the themes of our campaign. I actually got the Socialist Party nomination before I got the Green Party nomination. We had the endorsement of Socialist Alternative Independent Socialist Group and 4 DSA local chapters. And we sought nominations from independent progressive parties in several states. And most of them ducked. I mean, it was Trump. And they just decided they weren't gonna put somebody on their ballot for president. And somebody mentioned that Gloria had earlier said, you know, we organize all the left groups into one group, we're still gonna be small. You know, our task is to organize the 100 million people that didn't vote in 2016. disproportionately working class, people of color, young people. And that means, and this is a problem not just with our parties, but the whole left, we mobilize, but we don't organize. We preach to the usual suspects, or when we try to get new people, we preach instead of listen. And we don't build relationships and trust so that then we can talk about the politics. So I think that leads to what's missing and why people now there's this negative partisanship. Everybody's voting against the other party, the Democrats and Republicans, not for their own party. And what's missing is a mass party of the left with local chapters that have done the organizing in these communities. And I think, you know, that's the task that we have. In terms of expectations in this campaign,
30 seconds.
One of the main things we're trying to do with our green campaigns is retain or gain ballot lines, because this country's off the charts and just getting on the ballot to run candidates down ballot between the presidential elections. So every one of those is a victory, and we expect to get a number of ballot lines. And why isn't there a stampede to us? I think it's because we haven't done the organizing. People don't know us. They hear about us, but in this environment, I haven't got anything on network or cable news. I've got a little bit in some of the major papers, and that's been worse than before because I think the corporate media is so
3 minutes is up.
Okay. They don't want to hear about anybody else.
Okay, thanks, Howie. So I'm going to go to 2 minutes, and I'm going to apologize to Ted. He's going to get a chance to respond to one of the questions that's coming up. So that might let him say what he wants to say in this round. Okay, so I didn't actually get a stack. What I really see is questions next. I'm going to ask Jean Rule has a question and Stan Woods has a question. And then I'm going to call on the candidates, and I'll call on Ted first for the specific question for him, and then the other candidates for the question that's specific to them. And we're going to do 2-minute rounds for the participants, and I'm going to give the candidates 2 minutes. I'm going to give Ted 3 because he didn't get to participate last time. So go ahead, Jean, ask your question.
Okay, yeah. My other job is with the Veterans for Peace, and I'm the president of the East Bay chapter. And, as a 501c3 organization, we cannot take positions on electoral matters. But we do have some folks there that are Trump supporters, and they are very intelligent in their discussion on issues. I just want to mention that. The other thing I wanted to say is on the China issue, we have taken as our primary thing formation of a China study group, China work group, to push this issue of China bashing, which is a bipartisan thing. I know Gloria has spoken very good, has talked about the need to support the socialist countries, but I would like to hear all the commentators speak to the issue of China and China bashing and the new Cold War on China.
Okay, Stan, did you have a question also?
Yes, I'll direct it. It's mainly directed towards Ted Franklin, because I'm pretty sure I know what Howie Hawkins and Gloria would say. Ted, look, I've never supported the whole safe states, swing states thing, but I understand many people do now, especially. But then others, correct me if I'm wrong, are advocating that the Peace and Freedom and Greens and whomever get no votes anywhere for presidential. And I know it's only a small percentage of the vote, but what if by having that happen, the parties lost their ballot status? Would that be acceptable collateral damage to you? I mean, please try to clarify that. Recently in Wisconsin, the Green Party was barred from getting on the ballot. Disgracefully, in my view, People's World newspaper of the Communist Party USA took the position that they supported them being blocked off the ballot. And they also made some unsubstantiated accusations the Republicans were backing the Greens. And not just there, but elsewhere. They gave no evidence for that. So I just wonder, how far are you going with this? Are you saying that if Gloria got 400,000 votes in California and Howie got 400,000 votes also, that would somehow hurt a supposed united front against fascism? I don't get that. I understand the arguments in Nevada, Florida, Colorado, Michigan, Minnesota, but how does that argument even apply in California or New York, for example? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna let Ted answer for 3 minutes, and then I'm gonna ask Howie and Gloria to answer the China question, or however they want to deal with that, for 2 minutes. And then I see one more hand up, but there may be more. At 4 o'clock, we'll go to the 5-minute wrap up by the candidates. So go ahead, let's see, last time, Howie, I think should go first this time. Go ahead, Howie. Oh, no, this is Ted Franklin's turn. Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, I'll go first, as it were. So, that's a really good question, Stan, and I'm not a political scientist who's given a great deal of thought to this, and I think it's one of the challenges of that position. On the other hand, here's where I come from. I think this year is not the year. I don't know to what extent, I've been put in this bin as somebody who sort of says the same thing every 4 years, and I don't say the same thing every 4 years. I got a whole lot of flack for being a supporter of Ralph Nader in 2000, and I, like many of you, probably wound up, very versed in how to defend what happened in Florida, and explain, hey, if they hadn't put up such a weak candidate as Al Gore, that the Democrats wouldn't have lost, and there wouldn't have been a problem. And maybe if Al Gore had been a fighter, there wouldn't have been a problem. So, I'm familiar with those arguments around what happens in swing states. And I do not believe, though, that a swing state strategy is where we should be in this particular year. I'm relating it to very specific conditions. I do not think that it is right, anybody's right, who says, oh, it's the same all the time. And I don't say that it's the same all the time. I think people who say it's always been the same story, and that's the reason we need to do, to run our candidates, are guilty of the very thing they're accusing me of, or people who are arguing for a Biden victory. And what I'm talking about is especially how we interact with other people. I have many friends, people from labor, people from environmental struggles, who are anti-capitalists, who are socialists, who are working on addressing envelopes for Biden. Now, that's the work that they're doing. Should I tell them that they're wasting their time and what they should be doing is building a campaign for a third-party candidate in California? I can't do that. I don't know what the jeopardy is in terms of particular ballot, status for the parties.
30 seconds.
So I can't address that specifically. I'm sorry, I didn't.
30 seconds. You have 30 seconds left.
Okay, I will say this. I do think that this electoralist strategy for bringing people over to the point where someday we're going to win the election is not perhaps the way it's going to go. I think it's much more likely that we're going to see some kind of breakup of the Democratic Party at some point and a left party emerge out of that. But, again, I'm not a political scientist or a prognosticator, and I certainly don't have a crystal ball. But, I think that is a valid question that Stan asks, and I'd like to give it more thought myself.
Thank you, Ted. Now we're going to have Howie for 2 minutes and Gloria for 2 minutes. And
well, I'm a member of Vets for Peace and Vietnam Vets Against the War. And anybody that tells me that Trump is some kind of peace candidate is not paying attention. Trump has more troops in the Middle East than when he took office. He's escalated radically the number of drone strikes. He's continued special operations. The idea that Trump is some kind of lesser evil on a peace question is just not borne by the facts. When it comes to China, yeah, the saber rattling the United States is doing is counterproductive. It just reinforces the nationalist narrative of the Communist Party to justify their repressive practices at home. we need to engage China on life or death issues of climate, and China's got a big problem there, on the nuclear arms race, because they've responded to our initiation of that, and those two issues in particular. And I have no problem with speaking up for human rights in China. I think we got to speak up for it everywhere. A socialist movement that looks like it's supporting or apologizing for repression in other countries is not going to be popular in this country. And as far as the idea that somebody on the left should support Biden in California, I just don't get that. The stronger anti-Trump vote is a left vote, a vote for equal socialism, for real solutions. A vote for Biden just legitimizes this whole move to the right. Biden is chasing the Republicans. He's going to work across the aisle. That's been the whole trajectory of the Democratic Party for the last 50 years. Am I out of time?
Yeah, 20 seconds.
Oh, 20 seconds?
20
well,
seconds.
The other thing I'll say is grassroots people, the 100 million that didn't vote in 2016, they're disgusted with both parties. A lot of them still not voting. And those are the people we got to be talking to. You know, Trump is very dangerous, no doubt. But there's more than one way to fight him, and Biden ain't the best way.
Okay, thank you, Howie. Now we go to Gloria, 2 minutes to answer the questions.
Well, for our party, the PSL, we reject entirely the notion of China being a danger, or actually the issue of human rights violations. The greatest human rights violator in the world is the United States, from the sanctions, genocide, war, and the war at home against Black America. But the ones who are calling China the human rights violator is the United States government, which is trying to use its police forces from the FBI to the CIA against China on many fronts, on the Tibet question, Taiwan, Hong Kong, the Uyghurs. It's all a concentrated effort against China, which has gone on since the beginning of the imperialist dreams of breaking up and taking over China. And I would say that on the issue of environment, China's way ahead of any other country, except maybe Cuba, which is a small island, but on the issue of the environment, that it will be carbon neutral by 2030, I think it was, but is engaging in great reforms on the issue of the environment and fossil fuel usage. To be sure, they have had massive development projects to bring hundreds of millions out of poverty. But I remember a statistic a few years ago.
30 seconds.
Oil usage, per capita is 20 barrels in the US versus 2 in China. And I think we need to have a perspective about this. I think that Biden, by the way, his favorite nominee for Secretary of Defense, if he wins, Michelle Flourney, says that pivot to China is not strong enough, that we need to engage more militarily and stronger against China.
Time's up. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. And we still have 5 minutes before the, so we have time for maybe, have Richard Becker on stack, and then we have time for maybe one more question or comment before we go to the wrap up. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, I think that the reality is that the vast majority of progressive-minded people who are going to vote for Biden. That's real. I mean, and it's because Trump is such a despicable, incredible, indescribably horrible character, and what he's done is going to bring about that result. But at the same time, 2 points I want to make. One is, you don't know who the lesser evil is until afterwards. And I think the point is, like, if you look at some of the other elections in history, usually the promises that are kept are the ones we don't want, and the ones that we do want kept are not. So, you can go all the way back to Woodrow Wilson running in 1916. He kept us out of war. 32 days later, after his second term began, he declared war. And he was certainly planning to. In 1964, it was Goldwater and Johnson. Johnson was the peace candidate. the buildup was already going on, and then it was completely unleashed against Vietnam and against Southeast Asia that followed. You know, then you have Clinton, he promised 100,000 more cops and he kept his promise. But I think it's impossible to actually know the answer to that question. Probably Trump, a second Trump presidency will have aspects of it that are much worse.
30 seconds.
The one other thing I wanted to say was just to go back to the Constitution. I'm not talking about the Bill of Rights. I'm talking about the structure of the Constitution itself, which was designed from the beginning to separate the people from the power and to enshrine the interests of the slave owners and the smugglers and who are also called traders, and to protect them. That's the structure that exists. And that structure needs to be challenged. A crisis doesn't mean that the revolution is about to happen.
2 minutes up.
We shouldn't fear a constitutional crisis.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions or comments. I might have missed something. Most of them, I think, were chats to each other or things that have been pretty much dealt with. So I just want to thank everyone for participating, and I hope you'll stay tuned because we're going to have a 5-minute wrap up by each candidate. And this time we're going to go by each speaker, sorry, and we're going to go in reverse order. So we will start with Howie Hawkins, then we will go to Ted Franklin, and then we will have Gloria La Riva. And I do want to remind people that please do not make ad hominem attacks, either when you speak or when you're in the chat. And that means calling someone a name, just in case someone did not understand. Directly calling a person a name, that is not acceptable. Okay, so let's start with Howie. Howie, you have 5 minutes and you'll be given a 1-minute warning.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize again for getting here late. I just getting to a place where I could get on Wi-Fi after I was on a TV station in DC. It's been a long day, but I'm glad I got here for at least part of this discussion. Just to respond to some things that was said, I agree. When the US government speaks out on human rights, they got no credibility because we don't have human rights here at home for the reasons Gloria said. When I said we should speak out, I'm talking about the left. We should speak out for human rights and democracy everywhere. Otherwise, we're not going to be credible speaking to our own people. As far as China's environmental and climate policies, I suggest people read Richard Smith's work. He's got a new book out called China's Engine of Environmental Destruction. I mean, they're building 700 coal plants to power the Belts and Roads Initiative. They have built a lot of renewables, but that's basically because their air pollution is so bad around the big cities that people were literally dying. So that's something that I think China can turn around. But I mean, the way I look at it, they got a capitalist sector that's driving growth, and then they got a state sector that's driving growth in order to satisfy people that want results from the state. And they don't give the environmental movement, the labor movement, the democracy movements, their political rights to speak out and try to direct things. And actually it was Richard Smith said, and he's one of these people that say, don't vote for the Green Party or any party, vote for Biden, because we have a 2-party state and that's the only option. So you got to work within one of them. That's like him saying, go work within the Communist Party in China, which he's highly critical of. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And people have to understand, you know, we're being attacked. People on the left are saying, we don't care if the Green Party loses its ballot. And they are then joining, you know, the authoritarianism of the Democratic Party. It's not just the Republican Party. That thing up in Wisconsin, the Democratic Party completely broke the law. We, by the laws and the facts, should be on the ballot in Wisconsin right now. We were not allowed to present our evidence in the hearing of the Wisconsin Election Commissions because the Democrat had the gavel, met with the lawyer for the Democratic objector. We never got to present our stuff. And that came out in the dissenting opinion in Wisconsin. They not only kept us off the ballot illegitimately, they broke the law. Here in New York, Governor Cuomo has tripled the number of votes we need to keep our ballot line. That was done under the cover of the COVID pandemic attached to the state budget. So The Democrats just want to crush any alternative to their left that might compete for votes. So, you know, I'm wondering what happened to left solidarity in this thing. You know, in 2004, at least people said, I didn't agree with them, but, you know, the safe state strategy. Now they're saying we don't care if the Green Party's wiped off the ballot. That's a problem. So I urge people, you know, vote for the Green Party. We're on 30 ballots. That's 73% of the American people, including write-ins. We cover 96% of the American people will have an opportunity to vote for the Greens. And I would say, you know, the only way Trump can win, given the way the polls have been consistently having Biden ahead since the spring, is by stealing the election. Instead of attacking the Green Party, fight to make sure all the mail-in ballots are counted. Fight to make sure there's not intimidation at the polling places. Fight to make sure there's not election meddling. Because if Trump wins, it won't be the Green Party that did it, it'll be that stuff. And that's the real danger we face in this election. So, am I out of time? How am I doing?
No, you still have another minute. One more minute.
Okay. Well, let me just say how stupid the Democrats are and the Biden people attacking the Green Party. In Wisconsin, my running mate, Angela Walker, a native daughter of Black Milwaukee, got 67,000 votes running for sheriff. That's double what Jill Stein got in Wisconsin running for president. How do you think those people feel that she just got thrown off the ballot in Wisconsin? The Democrats think people that vote for us are automatically going to vote for Biden and the Democrats if we're not on the ballot. Doesn't work that way. Jill Stein, 61% of her votes, according to the exit polls, those voters wouldn't have come out and voted for her in 2016 if she was not on the ballot. You plug that number into Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, it wouldn't have made a difference. So this idea that we got to crush the independent left in order to support these neoliberal hawks to beat this authoritarian nutcase, Donald Trump, is just pushing the whole political spectrum to the right. You know, I say vote for what you want and make the politicians come to you.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Howie. Next, we have Ted Franklin with a 5-minute wrap-up.
Okay, so I have voted for third party in several elections, and I didn't see it moving things to the left. It's very easy to talk about this left-right spectrum as being something you can game out, pushing things to the left and pushing things to the right. If you move a piece here, it'll push those pieces over there. But that is what I was referring to as two-dimensional thinking, and not thinking about what is it that's going to happen in terms of our capabilities to organize in 2021. And I do think that there is a dramatic difference in the situation that we will face if Trump is in office or if Biden is in office. Do I think Biden is our leader? Of course not. I think the Democrats are terrible. I've voted against them on numerous occasions. And I don't spend time attacking the Green Party. In fact, I was invited to this particular meeting not because I wrote anything against the Green Party, but merely because I wrote something saying that I do think that it's important to vote for Biden on a tactical basis this year, as do quite a number of even my ultra-leftist friends. I'm saying that jokingly, but I think of you know, Richard Smith, who was just referenced, who's a good friend. And, you know, I urge you to visit System Change, Not Climate Change. Google it. You can find us on and you can see his recent presentation on China, which I think is very eye-opening, and it's coming from a solid socialist perspective. Now, I think a couple of things we need to think about. First, the struggle to oust Trump is the highest priority for everyone on the left this year. Trump, second, will do whatever he can to stay in power. Third, if he does, there will be no such thing as a safe state. All of us will be in the same boat. Every movement we support will be imperiled by the rule of an autocrat. If you do not believe that this is a qualitatively different kind of regime that he's proposing, where he overthrows the actual electoral vote, no matter how it goes through the conservative electoral college, you know, which I think, as Richard has pointed out, was designed from the start to produce undemocratic results. I think we're actually crossing an important line. And if we want to win socialism in the long run, the question we need to focus on with laser accuracy is, what will our battleground look like if we're under Trump next year, and what will it look like under Biden? And I think that's the arithmetic that most people on the progressive side of things, most people engaged in mass movements, are applying. What is the metric for success for the Green Party candidates this year? I think that question was asked. You know, if the Green Party gets less, or if all the left third parties get less votes than they did in 2016, does that mean it's a bad strategy, or that they should fold their tent? I don't know. I'm not going to say that, but I will say that, you know, there are no metrics for success that have been proposed. So I ask, what signal is sent by voting for third party candidates this year? What is the signal sent? And I point to the 2016 election when Jill Stein got 1.8% of the vote in California. There was a horrible neoliberal candidate running against Trump, who was sort of an unknown. We didn't quite think he was a neo-fascist yet. Now I think we do.
1 minute.
I think the noise will be super loud in the event that a leftist third party wins enough votes to make up the difference in any state. That is crucial. And that is not a question of whether or not that's fair. It's a question of how it will be portrayed and what its political impact will be. So I would urge you to join me and Cornel West and Angela Davis and Noam Chomsky and many other leftists who are calling for the election of Joe Biden by the widest possible margin. We have no illusions that Joe Biden is anything but a neoliberal disaster. But as Cornel has articulated in his prophetic voice, the choice this year is between a neoliberal disaster and a neo-fascist catastrophe. And I dropped in the chat, I dropped the link to the Toolkit for 2020, which has several things people can work on in terms of joining the Pledge of Resistance that Kaliakuno and his folks are organizing. You don't have to be a Biden supporter to sign on.
Okay, thank you very much, Ted. We will now go to Gloria La Riva's closing remarks.
Yeah, I really wish someone would take off in the chat some of this very inappropriate comment from a certain person. It's disgusting, and we need to read the chat. I want to start off with something that's usually at the end, so I don't forget, and that is I would urge people to visit peaceandfreedom.org, Peace and Freedom Party's website, and liberationnews.org for the PSL. My campaign website is lariva2020.org. And please, in California, register and support and get involved in Peace and Freedom Party. It's very important to keep socialism alive, because that's the only answer to this crisis that is continuing to deepen day after day. You know, I dread to think what would have happened if we had not run in the elections this year. If there had been no voice at all of our party fighting for socialism, because we can't abandon any arena in the struggle in our country to reach the working class. And most critical in election year, the presidential year, is to get involved and to talk about the issues, to cut through the lies, through the mist. And this year, there are not even any promises from the Democrats. We don't have to worry about what Trump's doing. He's horrific, but the Democrats aren't even proposing anything, except fracking, which Biden says we have to have. And I think that the role of socialists is to engage with the people in every way. And I think that our campaign has been fantastic to reach people that you don't see us on TV. You don't see us in much of the media. We've been fighting for every inch of newspaper coverage, for radio. We haven't gotten TV yet. I've only gotten TV coverage when I've been arrested. But if we have to, we do. And in this election year, when the crisis is so deep on the question of 50 million people facing possible eviction, and now being evicted, many people, of people who have no money, now the airline industry, for example, is going to start laying off tens of thousands of workers added to this crisis of the people. How can the Democrats and Republicans provide a solution when they are the problem, they are the cause, and they keep funneling trillions of dollars to the banks that created the last recession? And in fact, a recession was developing before the pandemic hit. And the money will continue to be funneled to them as people die in the streets from homelessness. Last year, in this end of December, 959 people died in Los Angeles County. This year, at the end of September, with 3 months left, 960 people have died in Los Angeles County from homelessness. And this is the crisis that is intolerable, and why many, many millions of people need to hear what we're fighting for, and who are very, very receptive. I said from New Orleans to Washington, D.C., Southeast Anacostia, and other areas of this country, and including here in New Mexico. We've met Native people in New Mexico, where again I'm from, who have said nobody ever visits us. Well, we have visited the Pueblos, but we have visited them safely to say, we're bringing you some literature. We don't want to enter Pueblo land in order to, because they want to protect the population. We've been to South Dakota marching. We've been there meeting with mothers and fathers and children who were stolen from their families because of this continuing racist kidnapping of Native children. As far as the vote, we don't know what the vote is going to be, but I think our influence is important, yes. And we're not embarrassed or ashamed of those small number of votes we have, because everybody knows that the vast majority of people don't even know that there is a third party, much less a socialist party. But it's a gauge. And yes, the Biden factor, the Biden-Trump factor will be great in terms of the vote. But I think more important than that is the influence we have had. And by the way, I don't think fascism is around the corner. I don't care how reactionary a president is. The masses of people reacting so strongly with the biggest number of demonstrations for Black Lives Matter shows fascism is not going to take root in the American population. No, we're going to fight it. And I have confidence in the struggle. And it's been a great debate, everybody. It's been a wonderful discussion. The kind of thing we should have on TV.
10 seconds. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you very much to all of the panelists. We still have about 15 minutes if people want to stay on. This would be a time when people can make announcements. If you have events coming up or programs coming up, please get on the stack or use the hand raising feature and I'll call on you. I hope the chat coordinator will give me a list of people who want to announce events. I'll start with any of the people who are the speakers because I can see you pretty well. Does Gloria or Howie or Ted want to announce an event or anything like that? Okay, so do we have, Stan, do we have anyone that's asking to announce events? I can't see all of the.
Sorry, I usually just text you. No, so far nobody said they just want to announce events.
Okay, so.
I was going to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, go to our website, howiehawkins.us for more information on the campaign. And in response to something said earlier about it's only between Trump and Biden, as soon as that debate started, we got swamped and our website crashed. Took us 3 days to get it back up. I think there's a lot of interest in alternatives, particularly after last Tuesday. So, but howiehawkins.us is where you can find more information. And that has announcements of events and activities.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Gloria.
Yes, thank you. There's a very important announcement. That is a campaign that's growing. Over 2,000 labor, community, religious leaders, and activists have signed on to demand all charges be dropped of the Denver activists who were arrested with felony charges, completely false felony charges, while the DA who imposed those charges on them refuses to file charges against the police who murdered Elijah McClain over a year ago. Our members in PSL are part of those defendants, and it's an egregious attack on the right to protest. It's happened in other cities as well as Portland. But please visit liberationnews.org to sign on. So many organizations talking about unity in the left have signed on to say it's an injury to one, it's an injury to all. And the other announcement is that this coming Thursday, the Free and Equal organization that carries on debates and will have a debate for all candidates. They're invited who are on the ballot in more than 10 states. Howie Hawkins and I will be on, in addition to a few others in Denver, Colorado. It will be broadcast or shown on internet, and that is 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, again Thursday. The freeandequal.org, I think, is the website. But the Denver, I hope people sign on to support our Denver comrades.
Thank you, Gloria. I have a couple of more people on stack for announcements. I want to make an announcement that the next Suds, Snacks, and Socialism Forum will be Saturday, the 7th of November, and the subject will be announced. We're working on it. Okay, I'm going to call on Jean Rule and then Stan Woods.
Thank you. And as you know, we have every Sunday morning, we have Sunday morning at the Marxist Library. And Larry will be speaking in a week or two, I believe, or not this week.
A week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow, yeah. And I also want to say that we have invited Gloria, and I'd like to make this public, to speak on November 7th. That's or November 6th, I think, which is the first Sunday after the election. And I'm sure she'll think of something to say at that time, either Gloria or a representative from PSL and the Answer Coalition, because we're going to be in the thick of it then, and we don't know exactly what's going to be happening then. So I hope Gloria or her representative will be able to speak on that, and we'll be in touch and try to arrange that. And also, we do have an open date. I forget when it is, late October, but we'd like to squeeze you in before then if we could. So you have an open invitation to speak at the Marxist Library on a Sunday morning. And yes.
Okay, and now Stan, you have an announcement?
Yes, there's some local races I think everybody on this call should and would support. A lot of you know Gerald Sanders, AKA Smith. He is one of the coordinators of this left school board slate in Oakland. And people know about the crisis in the Oakland school system. So if you'd like to know more about that, contact gsmith1917 at gmail.com. Also, in Hayward, there are 3 candidates of the Democratic Socialists of America running for city council there. And they really think that maybe they might have the first open socialist city council person outside of Savant in Seattle as a result of that race. I don't have the exact information in front of me, but go to Nestor, N-E-S-T-O-R, Castillo's Facebook page, and you can get more information. He's one of the 3 candidates, more information about the 3 comrades of DSA East Bay running for city council on a program in Hayward, a program of anti-police brutality and rent control and generally support for working class issues. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't see anyone else that wants to make an announcement. I want to remind people that this forum was co-hosted by the Peace and Freedom Party of Alameda County, that's in California, the Oakland, California Green Party, and Bay Area System Change, Not Climate Change. We try to do these forums the first Saturday of every month. To get, let's see, I don't know how some people are asking, how do we get more socialist forums? We do this every month. However you got this message, see how you can get plugged in to see future messages. I know we have them on our website, which is www.pfp.CA.Official. peaceandfreedom.org. And we try to get them posted on our Facebook page. I'm going to ask Dave Campbell to give the Facebook page in a minute. And they would be on the info, what's that called? There's a calendar, Indie Bay calendar. Dave, do you want to give the Facebook page for Peace and Freedom Party?
You put it in chat.
Okay, that's great. So I guess you can save the chat. There's some way, if you want to save the chat, I think there's a little 3-dot thing where you can save the chat. If you want to look it over later, because there are a lot of really interesting comments in the chat. Then there are some that I hope we could ignore. Well, thank you everybody for participating, and I hope to see you in 1 month for the next Suds, Snacks, and Socialism Forum.
Thank you, Marcia and Larry, for holding this event.
You're welcome, Gloria.
And